Hello, good morning, and welcome to my next podcast. As you can probably hear, I am behind the wheel. Yes, crazy ass Sagittarius, behind the fucking steering wheel driving, and I do apologize for the quality of the audio recording. The sun is up, it's bright, and it is shining. Perth has really put on a really beautiful morning, a beautiful day. If you know Perth, which I'm going to be talking about today a little bit in this upload, then you would know that Perth actually has identical weather patterns to Los Angeles. So if you know anything about LA, the city of angels, or should I say more the city of demons, then you'll know that people came to LA because they were able to get continuity in their filming when they were doing movies, because it's the same day every day. There's no clouds in the sky, it's blue sky for a lot of the time. And then there's like a wet kind of period as well. So that being said, I was going to upload this video the other day, but I've just been so fucking hammered with so much going on. I also am part-time a disability support worker. So for those that don't know that, I really humble myself by going out into the community and helping people. And when I say helping people, I mean like being really kind of hands-on. You know, like support work means I accompany someone and help them prepare meals, or I help them go shopping. I help them get around in their day-to-day life. We also go and do adventures. And today is one of those days. So I'm getting out there and I'm doing this. It's very, very humbling. It's very, very satisfying to be doing this level of work. It takes a lot of patience and integrity. And what could be more of service to the world than being of service to someone on that level and holding that level of compassion and space for someone. So just so you know, that's what I do. I'm doing it part-time. It's not a full-time thing, but some days it is nice to go and do this. Nothing will get you out of your own head more than being of service to other people. Nothing. So I will go on to continue the topic that I wanted to talk about today. I'm getting older. You know, I'm turning 40 this year. We're all aging. Time doesn't move backwards. It is brutal the way that time moves. And the only currency that a human actually has is time. You know, time is the only currency that a human has in this life. The choices that we make with it, what we do with it, is in the end all that matters, because life sucks the life out of you until it does. If that makes sense. So yeah, my vision isn't exactly what it used to be. I have lines on my face. Yes, I am aging. I'm human, subject to the human laws like we all are, and there's not much we can do about it. Although I still feel most of the time quite crazy, and I go into my inner child and I'm quite absolutely insane. In a fun way, not in like a crazy, psychotic way. But I wanted to share some things with you. So I didn't want to make this video too dark, because I do want to do a video essay unpacking George Orwell's 1984, and also taking a glimpse at the Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, which I'll be sharing with you. But the thing that I'm coming to now, and this is getting a bit more heavy, is that if you haven't noticed, the human race on pretty much every level now is heading straight towards a tree. The human race is heading straight towards a nosedive. It's in a nosedive right now, on an economic level, on a social level, on a spiritual level, and this is something that anyone who has any level of truthful intelligence, or is able to get out of the indoctrinations and cognitive dissonance that is basically mind programming, which is what most humans are, to be NPCs, then you'll know that we're in very, very serious times. We are kind of heading into this time in the world where maybe not perhaps necessarily fully in my time before I physically die in this world, basically kind of a collapse of society as we know it in the modern world in a lot of ways. Since modern day capitalism became the main focus, socialism doesn't work, capitalism doesn't work, and now we're kind of living in this pre-apocalyptic time where people just kind of exist. There isn't really any growth, and everything's kind of starting to go backwards inside of itself. So I've been very aware of this for the past few years, particularly around the time of COVID. Around 2019 was a really, really heavy-duty year for me in my journey here in the physical world. And I began to really understand, really waking up to a lot of the, should I say, puppeteering that goes on mass levels, whether it is with the Ukraine, whether it is with, insane, satanic gender ideologies, and kind of like an attack on all things that are wholesome, all things that are holy, all things that have integrity. We see the integrity of things becoming inverted. So putting it really lightly, and I know it's it's not a light thing to talk about. I'm very aware that what I'm saying is not a joke. This is very, very serious stuff. Is that fundamentally, if you haven't noticed, we are living in an inverted world. And so if heaven and hell were reflections of each other, then what was earth but a mirror of both? And as an occultist, as a spiritualist who is really into this level of knowledge, it is pretty obvious that a reset is in play. And so with the time that we have, and I don't want you to think that I'm bowing out of the fight, because I'm not, but I've come to a conclusion with a friend of mine that at this point, with the years that I have left in my life, so I'm like 40 now, and I'll probably have another 20, 30, 40 years left maybe, that it really isn't about me. And it's also kind of in a way, with part of the programming and conditioning, and I know I'm jumping a little bit here, is that we're all kind of fed a lie to get us onto the treadmill or onto the hamster wheel of, if you get a career, if you go to university, if you get this job, then you'll get this money, then that will make you happy, and then you'll have a family because everyone else is doing it, and then you'll be happy. And it was this whole thing, this Disney thing that we all were really fed, which was, work hard, work really, really hard, and then you can have the Australian dream, or you can have the American dream. And for a period of time, particularly for the boomer generation, the generation before the millennials that came before me, that was certainly a combination or a strategy that worked. Now in the modern world, it's, if you don't know this, like the only way you're going to have the American dream is when you're asleep. It's the wages are so non-proportional to the cost of living and to the cost of housing. And at this point in Australia, it would actually take 7 of me to have a sustained lifestyle that a boomer once had. So the boomers are great because they've got properties and they've, done well. Most of them did, just by default, by having an old rundown, dilapidated house that could actually end up selling for up to $2 million. But for the generation after that, we now see the highest demographic of people that are homeless or are living in their cars or are back at their parents' house in their 30s are now my generation. And the generation now that's come through will never have a chance at this stage, because it's all just gotten so darkly out of hand. And so these days, it's not even about having the ability to save money, even if you're managing two jobs and you've got a dual income with a partnership, a wife or whatever. I remember back in the day when The Simpsons came out, it was really this American dream of Homer was the provider. He went to the nuclear power plant, he went to work, and then he produced an income that could sustain a family of his wife and 3 kids. That is not possible on any level now. And so at this point, I think a lot of the new generation know that. I think they've been sold a bomb hand. And at this point, I also don't feel, now this is getting very heavy, that the new generation of kids of today have anywhere near the level of toughness, mental capacity, relationship skills that would even be anywhere near required to, or even empathy to actually run the future and actually build infrastructure and manage the world. I just don't see it. And I work with kids, okay? I work with kids. The interpersonal relationship skills are just simply just not there at all. And it's pretty obvious. So at this point in my time, it's highly probable, and I have mentioned this before, that I began to feel a shift in a breaking down of society where people, it's like everyone's like fragmented from each other, and all these subgroups and all this bullshit has really fragmented everyone through social media as well. And so at this point, most people are single, most people are not having kids, and then we have this other higher hand that's playing over all of these countries, such as Canada, Australia, Europe, where we're being inundated and oversaturated to such an extreme level of immigration that we don't have the infrastructure to sustain it on any level. And so this bumps up more problems, it creates more problems, it creates more violence because the compatibility is not there in terms of culture, and it creates basically more fragmentation and makes us weaker and weaker. So basically, I'm not a Zionist and I'm not saying this in any racist way, but if you can see this, then you would already know that a lot of these countries that we once loved, like the UK and Canada, and now my country, Australia, are basically starting to collapse. And so people don't like hearing that if it's, when it comes to humans, just putting on my spirituality and psychologist cap here, it's humans only will like something when it's in their favor. So if they've got lots of property and they're really benefiting from it and everything's in their favor and they're getting more out of this, well, then they don't want to hear what I have to say because it's going to freak them out. It could also be a threat to what they're benefiting from. But for the ones that are on the flip side of this, that are now facing homelessness, and there's a lot more homelessness than ever before in Australia, you'll see that it's really very, very serious stuff. It's very, very serious. We don't see it televised on the news, but there is a homeless situation that's starting to happen within my country, Australia, that is reaching unprecedented levels. People hanging out and living in their car, people living in tents with their kids. It's really getting really, really, really fucking out of hand. And so that's just where we're at. That's what's happening. And with the time that I have left, I've been shown that I don't think for this one, it's like for this life, it'll be me kind of more, I don't want to be in a fight or flight response all the time. I know that you probably don't either. You're probably tired from being on the treadmill of just having to pay bills and live, and you feel trapped and stuck and depressed and sad. And one of the things that's also happened as well in the modern world through things like fans only and how we consume each other as products now is that unearned value is competing with earned value. Like I was mentioning before, when it's like, if you work hard, you can get ahead. If you work hard, you can do right, you can do better. That's not even an option anymore. That doesn't work. These days, people are doing less than ever and are being able to benefit more than anyone that works harder than others. So we're living in a rigged system that is always rigged in the favor of he who has the gold makes the rules. And that's why when you put politicians in power play dynamics over other people, well, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. So if they've got lots of properties and they're benefiting from this, they don't want us to go into a recession, which we really are in. They just want to keep pumping more immigration in, which makes the numbers look good, which prevents us from going into the recession that we really kind of need to actually have, which is fucking dire, because that way it benefits them. So he who has the gold makes the rules. Do you get it? And that's where we're at. The politicians have sold us out. They've sold out Canada. They've sold out the UK. And now we have the start of facial recognition and AI coming in, which is exactly what George Orwell was talking about in his book referring to Oceania, which I will be unpacking at length at some point on my channel. So, this is all very heavy duty stuff and it's quite fucking exhausting. But at this point, rather than cry and be sad about a world that is collapsing and get mad and offended and upset all the time everywhere I turn, I've decided that partly the reason why I chose Perth, if you guys don't know Perth, it's Perth, Perth. And it is the most isolated city in the world. Okay, if you know Australia, then you'll know that Australia is roughly the size of the United States, and there's a town or towns and cities on the western side of Australia, right down the bottom of the world, that hold a very small population that is really cut off with giant deserts that go on forever around me, right on the edge of the coast. And it was always a dream of mine to live right beside a beach. I have a lot of Venus in my chart, so going to the beach, being in water and being in nature and going out into the sea and feeling the current of the ocean has always been something that I love to do. And so I have made that become a reality. I left Melbourne. It's been basically completely overtaken by India in terms of population. I left the stress of the city to come and live in a coastal area that is very remote. And I strategically did this because I love the water, I love the sun, I love the sea. But I also know that when everything starts to finally collapse, that this place will go into a level of lockdown like it did before with COVID, where I will probably get to see what comes before me in a delayed time before you get to have it happen to you, basically. Because in a second, you've got to understand that a lot of people have a lot of security in thinking that their government is going to protect them and take care of them, okay? This level of thinking is so fucking stupid that it's really scary, okay? And so they think that society is like an airtight brick wall, not understanding that society is actually more like a water balloon. And one little prick can set in a chain of events that can basically wipe your wealth in seconds. I know that's scary to hear, but it's not like the old days when you had money in the bank and it was like gold bullion, you know. In like the Western world where you like go into like a bank and be like, I'd like to withdraw money, please. Like, oh, okay, sure. Your money is like on a computer program on a server, okay? It's not physically there, okay? So think about that. Think about digital currency. Can't you not see where this is all going, right? So at this point with the timeline that I have, when I'm dead and I'm gone, I don't give a shit. I've been trying to find ways to not have to come back here. I don't want to be wiped again to come back and reincarnate like a monarchin does in like Aeon Flux, which is what happens to most humans. But I do believe that after this life, I want to go on to do something else. I want to be an angel. I want to be somewhere else. I feel like I've served my time here, and when my time is done, it's done. And then I get to not have to come back here again. I've learnt the lessons, I've done the thing. And a lot of people that have Pisces in their chart, particularly the Pisceans, they feel that way too. So that's where I'm at. So moving forward at this point, I want to be a mermaid beach daddy. Okay? I'm going to be a merman beach daddy. I love the idea of sitting in a rocking chair or sitting on a porch somewhere in the country with a cigar and a whiskey or even a joint, and basically laughing as the sky turns red and, you know, aeroplanes drop out of the sky and nuclear, like the whole thing. Like it's highly probable, and it will happen, even if like Islam takes over, which it will, it always does. Colonialism, by the way, is part of human consciousness. It's what humans do to each other. So why would any white person think it would be any different? It's what happens. All empires are built on top of empires that came before it. It's just the truth of reality of life. It's what happened to Aboriginals. It's what happened to Native American people. Don't even get me started on that shit. But that's what happens. You know, it's what happens, and that's part of what humans do. And when you look back into a lot of history, like I have, you'll often see that the same scenarios and dynamics are always playing out, where one village takes over another village, rapes and kills their people, and sacks the village, and then the other village gets revenge on them, and then they come back, and the cycle of revenge and the cycle of this is really the history of the human race. And it's not going to change anytime soon. And people say, why? Well, because systems oppose systems. That's why religions all believe that, particularly with the Abrahamic religions, they believe they're the only one. And then the Christianic ones are like, well, no, we're the only one. So we've got all of this type of thing going on, and they're not compatible. So we have bloodshed, we have murders, we have bombings, we have propaganda. It's all part of what the elites, the people that really run the world, the club that runs the world that we're not in, really does. Divide and conquer. You know, it wasn't back until about 2012, 2013, a lot of these wokey ideologies started coming into American universities that we'd never seen before, and Canadian universities, to start indoctrinating all of the kids into this mind programming, which would make them confused and make them turn against themselves, literally, question and not know what they want, what they're doing, who they are, fundamentally breaking down and weakening parts of society, particularly in America. So don't be surprised in the history of the world. It's like, you know, you think that one country might be sitting at number one, and then there's number 2 and 3 and 4 sitting in the background, and then it's basically kind of a takeover. So it's a power play. It's like schoolyard, really. It's like bullies in a schoolyard. Everyone believes that their team is right. But for me at this point, I'd rather enjoy what's left, salvage whatever I can with what is left now, because it is going to get a lot harder, believe me. And so if I can get to a position where I'm not really chasing materiality, I'm able to sustain myself, go for a swim and sit in the sun and be in a state where my adrenaline isn't being completely destroyed. I'm not being oversaturated with stress and worry and all of the heartbreak of the world, and be in a place that I can sustain, not because I don't know what's going on, because I fucking do, I'm talking about it right now, but because a lot of this stuff is all predicted. I know you probably don't know that, but say 7/11, or what was it? 11, September 11, sorry, 7/11. Just made me think of wanting a Slurpee. This is all predicted events. So things like kings and queens winning battles and wars that take place, it's like it's all part of the human's consciousness, and I can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about it. It will come to pass. I was watching a show which I really recommend. It's called Raised by Wolves, which was reference to Lamia, the wolf that raised the kids, and the android mother and father on Kepler B. One of the things that the creator of Mother said to her was, it is in human nature to destroy themselves over and over again, but you, being the most perfect creature that I've created in the image of man as an android, which is also really fucked up, is the most proudest thing that he ever created. And I thought that's really interesting, is that if humans couldn't do it, and humans are total fucking narcissists, which they are, creating like intellectual thought outside of themselves in the image of themselves, which is really the Antichrist, which is what AI is, the age of Aquarius, technology, and we try and emulate nature and try and genetically modify food. And, by the way, when a human interferes, when the scientist interferes with nature in terms of like IVF and playing God and genetically enhancing food, thinking that they're a creator, you didn't create anything. Scientists aren't creating anything. You're just manipulating things that are here already. You're not a creator. Humans have always wanted to play God to their own detriment. So it is what it is. We will see a sperm count drop in the Western world because humans were never designed to have mobile phones. Radio waves go through the body and male sperm drops. This is all real stuff, and it's going to have the chickens always come home to roost. Microplastics, it's beyond any chemtrails, it's all fucked. Everything a human touches is fucked because we're flawed. So, as a merman beach daddy, at some point, I'm going to accept this and just lay in the sun and know that if I can find a little bit of joy and make a painting and make something beautiful that I like, then I can just live and breathe. And understanding that I chased fame, I chased money, I chased all these things, none of it makes you happy. It's like feeding delicacies to a fucking racehorse, right? It has to come from within. If you're not happy within yourself, nothing external to you will fix that. Would you ever really be up to accept that everything you were taught and were conditioned to think was just nothing more than manipulation? That's a pretty tough pill to swallow, but it's the truth. And I am starving. I'm starving for connection. I'm starving for intellectual connection. I'm starving for physical connection in a lot of ways. We all are. I'm starving for an equal intimacy into me I see. So I've been living off scraps for a long time as a gay man. A lot of gay men, they're not leaders and they're not spiritual. Straight up. How many gay men do you know are into actual self-development? None. They're not leaders. So you think it's hard being straight? Try being gay. And then try having some kind of cult come along and completely erode what you are. Even if you're a woman being eroded, like it's so fucking crazy. And then they try and gaslight you and tell you, no, you're not. Just shut up. So, as a merman daddy, that's the plan. I'll grow my beard long like Merlin. I'll have a tan and just create a pocket where I can live and breathe at the bottom of the world. And there probably more than likely will come a day when I'll go to my friend and he'll come to me, whichever first, and he'll say it's happening. And your phone will be dead. The TV will be out. Because one of the things in America particularly, because it's always America, is that if someone cut your power in America and there was no electricity, the backup generators would not last long. In fact, in most places, there aren't backup generators. I hope you're listening to this, and if you're in America, you won't be able to charge your phone. You won't be able to flush the toilet. You won't be able to pump water. You won't have any heating. If you're in winter, you'll be freezing. Do you have life skills? Do you have survival skills? Can you make a fire? Can you hunt? Can you actually do things that the government never taught you to do? Can you live off the land? Can you build shelter? Or what are you going to do? Try and sit on your fucking phone posting shit, right? Because if that happens, if there's no electricity in the grid, it won't be long before people start turning on each other. If the financial system collapsed and all of this really means nothing and everything you've accumulated means nothing, the only real currency that humans will be after is food. And in human nature, they will form groups, and then those groups will overthrow those groups, and those groups break down into other groups, and it becomes like this big kind of Walking Dead type of thing, where everyone's trying to survive. And I think secretly, I have mentioned this before, and I'm thinking this is a very potent podcast that I'm uploading because it's just so true, but I think in society, we've seen this interest in shows like The Walking Dead and apocalyptic type shows because, like, Under the Dome and things like that, like Resident Evil, because secretly underneath all of this bullshit that humans have created with the 9 to 5 and being trapped as a corporate wage slave to a psychopathic company that couldn't give a shit about you, is that we want it all to go back to ground zero and plant tomatoes in a field. We want it to go back to a time when things were simpler, because we know that the human was never designed to have a phone in their hand and access to what's happening all over the world every day at once. Humans are tribally programmed for smaller groups. So everyone's depressed, everyone's lonely, everyone's got ADHD, everyone's got some level of autism now. I mean, don't even get me started on the fucking vaccines. So this is where we're at. We are heading into the age of Aquarius. And it was said in the Bible, I remember the chapter is, when the water bearer comes, do not follow him into his house. I wonder what that means. ... So, Mermaid Beach Daddy, cigar on the beach, doing my thing, chilling the fuck out, finding a little bit of joy in pockets here and there where I can, bake some fucking muffins. And I came in too late. I always knew that I was born too late. I was always attracted to people that were older than me by like 20, 30 years. I don't relate to anyone younger than me. I never really have. Because I'm a really old soul. I'm like an old man in my heart. I'm like a Sagittarian is the philosopher and the, the storyteller, the one that brings knowledge and light into the world. My name is Lucas. It means light bringer, bringer of light. And people would say that's dark, but no, it's not. Light illuminates darkness, which is why I bother even doing this fucking channel. So you're welcome. So I just want to swim in the sea. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like, I'd love to put on a merman tail and splash around in the fucking sea and just be a beautiful merman and enjoy nature before it all collapses, because I am living in the most remote and most beautiful part of the world. Yes, I own a razor-sharp katana sword. Yes, I have the training. I know what's coming, and for those of you that do know what's coming, you've already got a plan. And some people would say, well, you're a what's the word? You know, people that have bunkers and shit, and you're like a doomsday prepper. And I'm like, no, sweetheart, I'm a doomsday fucking realist. All the way. So just remember that when things get cut and the servers get blown out, YouTube won't be here. You won't be able to go, oh, I'll just go sit on YouTube today and listen to some stuff. Because other than that, it's like, what are you guys doing other than listening to some fucking videos? Like, it's the same when people come to me when they're into the occult. I'm like, well, what are you doing other than watching videos? Are you actually practicing this craft? Are you actually making the sacrifice and having the due diligence to actually do that inner work? Because I can assure you it's very, very painful. And a lot of the people that promote a lot of spiritual stuff, it's just nothing more than narcissism. Spirituality is very, very painful. When you wake up to the world that you're living in, it can actually be so devastating. You could even have suicidal ideation when you start to see the world as it really is. That's why I don't take people that don't travel internationally much seriously. Because it's not until you go to China, go to India, go and get out there and see the fucking world that you'll understand a lot of the stuff you've been taught is not how the world actually is. That's why when I meet someone, I talk to them, I have to go in slow and be like, okay, let's just do a shit test. We call it shit testing. It's like when you date someone and you drop in questions to see their mental state, to see how far this could actually ever go. Because if they haven't even bothered to do the slightest bit of work on reality, to actually assess reality, well then how far could we ever go in any level of connection? Because we can't prolong something that isn't fucking real. I'm getting a little emotional. So I kind of laugh at this. At this point, I'm just laughing. I am. I know it's crazy, but that's how, like, not damaged or broken I am. But I actually, like, when I can smell burning, I'm like, is it time? Is it happening yet? Because I know that it will happen, and it's also that, remember that all things have to be rebuilt on top of other things, whether it's positive or negative. Well, that really depends on your point of view, doesn't it? I know this is probably breaking people's brains, but yes, welcome to my world. Welcome to the inside of my head. It's like a fucking jungle. So if you want to have real talk, you can DM me on Instagram if you so choose. If this has offended you, well, I'm so sorry. Remember, nothing can hurt us if it isn't true. Otherwise, who gives a shit? But please, I encourage you to leave a comment. I know that YouTube has censored the shit out of my channel. I know that. I know that I'd get more views if I did a fans only, or if I talked about other nonsense, if I sexualized myself. You know, even average people that put in zero effort now get to be famous. Like, it's just wild. Like I said before, that whole work hard thing, that's off the table now. So I'll leave it here. Lots of love and truth to you, coming from your merman spiritual beach daddy, King Triton. Bye. Leave a comment. Bye.